You said last week how when you don't go to Old Trafford, Arsenal win. When you do go to Old Trafford, Arsenal don't win. You went to Old Trafford, Arsenal didn't win. You're still the bad luck chum, I'm afraid. But yeah, so 1-1 against Manchester United on Sunday. Especially after scoring seven in the weeks, very, very disappointing. And were they arguably because Raya had to make three key saves in that second half. There was the Declan Rice tackle on Højlund, so were Arsenal arguably lucky not to lose that one?
I think they were. Yeah, I think they can definitely. I'm sure when they were travelling back down the motorway yesterday, they were certainly counting themselves quite lucky they didn't lose the game. Had it not been for David Raya, they would have lost the game. It's plain and simple as that. It was a poor performance. I mean, I thought Man United were there for the taking, especially in the first half. Were absolutely there for the taking. Had a team with a little bit more cutting edge and a little bit more about them in the final third would have comfortably won that game. But we've seen it time and time again with Arsenal. We've seen it, to be fair, before the injuries as well. Even when the star attackers have been on the pitch, they've had games like that. And it was just another one of those. They were prodding, they were probing, they were moving the ball around, but they never really looked like opening United up in that first half. And when you do that, and when you don't score, you leave yourself open to going behind. A moment of brilliance, individual magic, a mistake, a deflection, a set piece. And, it was a moment of magic yesterday from Bruno. I think David Raya was poor from a goalkeeping point of view from the free kick, but, it was a great hit from Bruno. He took advantage of the bad positioning, and suddenly Arsenal then left with a bit of a mountain to climb. Yes, they got themselves level in the second half, but it just wasn't a good performance. On the back of the 7-1 against PSV, I was really hoping that Arsenal were going to go to Trafford and make a bit of a statement and just say, right, we've sort of got used to playing without the attack now. We showed in PSV we can score goals, and now we've backed that up with a really good win at Old Trafford. And it just didn't happen. And it's just now we're here on a Monday morning again with those same old questions and sort of feelings about this Arsenal team. And yeah, it feels like a really big missed opportunity for Arsenal yesterday.
Certainly, yeah. And after that, scoring seven against PSV, maybe expectations would have been slightly tempered, given that, in the Premier League, you do face more low blocks. In Europe, teams
Mm.
do tend to go for it more. So, was that the big difference, do you think, between Arsenal's attack against PSV and against Man United, just the way that Amorim set his team up?
It was definitely a bit of a difference, but I think there was less intent about Arsenal against PSV from the first couple of minutes. There was a real intent to get in the box to cause PSV problems. There was movement. Like I said, there was 6, 7 players in the box at times. It didn't really happen against United. They just very quickly fell back into that sort of slow, laborious build-up of the kind of horseshoe of doom, as a lot of Arsenal fans call it, when you're just moving the ball around in that horseshoe shape around the edge of the penalty area with very little cutting edge in the central areas. And that was a big sort of shame for me watching it because, like I said, United were there for the taking in that first half. I thought they were really poor, and I thought they did actually give Arsenal quite a bit of space, but Arsenal just didn't exploit it at all and didn't really look like exploiting it. And yeah, you could tell Arteta was frustrated. Where I was sitting in the press box, the manager's dugouts are just in front of us, really. And you could see in the first half, Arteta was frustrated. He was coming back. He was storming back to the bench. He was sort of shouting at his coaching staff. You could see he wasn't happy with what the players were doing. So he clearly didn't send them out to play like that. But I just think this Arsenal side now, it's just a sort of fallback option for how they play. And there's a long way left this season. And that's all I was thinking when I was driving home yesterday. I was like, there's a long way to go. Still 2 months to play. Arsenal have got to find a way of being able to score goals, to break teams down. Because if not, we're going to see a repeat of that game and a repeat of the game we saw against Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks ago, time and time again between now and the end of the season. And Arsenal can't afford to let that happen.
Yeah, so Arsenal couldn't exploit the space, like you said, but Bruno certainly exploited the space between the ball and the wall for that free kick. It's something you don't you rarely see that, honestly. I mean, I think it was what 11.2 yards, and it should have been
Mm.
obviously should have been 10 yards. I mean, can Arsenal have any complaints about that? I mean, I thought Rice's positioning, like you said, was not great. The wall maybe could have inched forward like United did for the Odegaard free kick in the second half. So can they have any complaints about that, or should they have done better?
I mean, they can have complaints about it, but I think they could have done better as well. First of all, they could have really made a point of the fact that this isn't 10 yards. But ultimately, I think, wherever the wall was, I think the free kick probably goes over it. Bruno hit it so well. I just think David Raya got his positioning all wrong. And when you sort of watch it from behind the goal, he takes a couple of steps to his left, but then he stops and then he reacts really slowly when the ball actually does come over the wall. And by then, there's no chance of him getting it. So, he had a really good game, David Ryan. It was down to him that Arsenal didn't lose it. But I'm sure, watching with the analysts and watching with Naki Canada goalkeeping coach afterwards, he will know that he could have done better with that free kick. So I don't think Arsenal could really have any complaints. Arteta didn't really complain about it afterwards when he was asked about it in the press conference. It's sort of been dressed up a little bit like he has complained about it, but he didn't. He just basically said, "Look, Bruno was clever. Fair play. He was cleverer than us. He was clever than the referee, and he took advantage." And so I don't really see Arsenal can see that as a reason to complain. Really, I think they've got to look at themselves before they look at anyone else.
Yeah, so United made the most of that set piece, but Arsenal's set pieces recently, they're not as effective as they were. I think that's the seventh Premier League game in a row where they haven't scored from a set piece, and they had plenty of corners at Old Trafford, just didn't make the most of them. You know, obviously with Saka being out, his corners are on the money all the time, so that's a big a big reason why I guess Arsenal have been scoring as many. But do you think teams have also figured Arsenal out from set pieces, or is it purely the fact that Saka's unavailable?
I don't think it's purely the fact that Saka's unavailable because Declan Rice's free kicks were such a weapon during that time as well. And Arsenal aren't scoring from those at the moment. Arteta flagged it up afterwards in the game in his press conference. Like we've got to do more from those set pieces because we are struggling going forward. We're not scoring that many goals from open play at the moment, certainly in the Premier League anyway. We don't have our star attackers, and those set pieces were really useful to us before, and now those have dried up. So they've got to find a way. Whether it's just the fact that teams have wised up to it a little bit and how they defend. When Arsenal cluster at the back post, whether it's delivery's not quite right. You're not really seeing Gabriel being able to sort of really attack those set pieces like he used to do in the past. So I think it's a sort of culmination of things, really. But it's very, very notable. There's definitely the issue of Saka not being there is definitely a very real one because Arsenal's set pieces from that side haven't been good enough. Whether it be Nwaneri, whether it be Odegaard, they're just a little bit floaty. Saka gets such a whip on the ball with real pace, and it's really hard to defend against. I think now it's a lot easier for teams to defend against set pieces coming from that side. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. The goals have dried up. It's been a long time since Arsenal scored from a set piece, and when you're struggling like Arsenal are going forward, you really need that weapon to be as sort of dangerous as it always has been. It's just not right now.